The scalpel's whisper still echoed in Maverick's veins when he first locked eyes with Elias, the night nurse whose steady hands had pulled him back from the edge of the operating table. His voice a low anchor in the haze of morphine dreams. "You're not done fighting yet," Elias had murmured, fingers brushing Maverick's wrist like a secret promise. But in that touch, Maverick felt the weight of something unspoken, a fear that mirrored his own buried ache. As the Seattle rain pattered against the hospital window like impatient fingers on glass, Maverick realized the stranger's gaze held not just compassion, but a hunger that could shatter them both if they dared to name it. In the dim glow of the 4 monitors, beeping like a hesitant heartbeat, Maverick shifted under the thin blanket. His body a map of fresh scars from the tumor they'd carved out of his lung like a thief in the night. Seattle General had become his reluctant fortress, a sterile maze of fluorescent hums and echoing footsteps, where the Puget Sound fog rolled in from the bay to cloak the city in perpetual twilight. At 28, Maverick Hale had arrived here on a Greyhound from the dusty plains of eastern Montana, chasing a dream of indie filmmaking that had sputtered out like a faulty reel in a rain-soaked alley. Now, cancer had rewritten his script, turning his broad-shouldered frame, once honed by hauling camera rigs through indie sets in Missoula, into a fragile outline, ribs pressing against skin like forgotten storyboards. Elias Navarro glided into the room just past midnight, his shift a ritual of quiet vigilance. 6 feet of lean muscle wrapped in navy scrubs, with olive skin that spoke of Mexican roots blended into the Pacific Northwest's melting pot, and black hair cropped close to ward off the damp chill. His eyes, dark and unyielding as the midnight ferries crossing Elliott Bay, scanned the chart before settling on Maverick with that practiced neutrality nurses wore like armor. But tonight, as Elias adjusted the saline drip, his fingers lingered a fraction too long on Maverick's arm, tracing the vein with a feather-light precision that sent a shiver unrelated to the chill air. "You look like hell," Elias said, his voice a soft rumble laced with East Ella vowels softened by years in the rainy city. He pulled up the vinyl chair, the one with the duct-taped armrest, and sank into it, clipboard balanced on his knee. It was their unspoken routine now, these midnight confessions when the ward fell silent save for the distant wail of an ambulance slicing through Capitol Hill. Maverick managed a crooked grin, the kind that pulled at the stitches along his collarbone. "Flattery will get you everywhere, Doc. Or are you moonlighting as a therapist too?" His voice was rough, scraped raw from the ventilator, but it carried the dry wit of someone who'd grown up trading barbs around Montana campfires, where stories were currency and vulnerability a luxury. Elias chuckled, low and genuine, the sound warming the room like steam from a corner coffee cart on Pike Street. "Nurse, not doc, and therapy's extra. But yeah, I've heard worse openers." He leaned forward, elbows on knees, the fabric of his scrubs whispering against itself. In the half-light, Maverick caught the faint shadow of stubble along Elias's jaw, the way his lips curved in a half-smile that didn't quite reach those guarded eyes. Elias had been at Seattle General for 5 years, ever since nursing school spat him out into the grind of 12-hour shifts and moral ambiguities. At 32, he was the steady one, the guy who remembered birthdays for his patients and slipped extra Jell-O to the kids on pediatrics. But beneath it all simmered a history he kept chained. A high school sweetheart in Boyle Heights who'd bolted when Elias came out, followed by a string of hookups in dimly lit Seattle bars that left him hollow, convinced love was just another 4-line destined to pull away. That first night, as Elias charted vitals, Maverick's hand twitched toward the call button, not for pain meds, but for the simple anchor of another human voice. "Tell me something real," Maverick rasped, the words slipping out before he could reel them back. "Not the sanitized bullshit. What's the worst thing you've seen in this place?" Elias paused, pen hovering. The rain intensified, drumming a staccato rhythm on the window pane, blurring the neon glow of the Virginia Mason sign across the street. A father holding his kid's hand while the machines flatline, 20 times over. His voice cracked just a hair, and he cleared his throat, masking it with a sip from his battered Seahawks mug. "But you're the one staring down the barrel. What's your story, Maverick Hale? Montana plates on that beat-up truck in the lot. Running from something or to it?" Maverick's hazel eyes, flecked with gold like autumn leaves on the Bitterroot River, met Elias's without flinching. "Both. Grew up in Billings, fixing tractors and dreaming of Scorsese. Landed in Seattle 6 months ago with a backpack and a script about lost boys in the mountains." Thought I'd shoot it guerrilla style, fund it on Kickstarter. Then this. He gestured vaguely at his chest, where the port for chemo loomed like a mechanical heart. Lung cancer at 28. Smoked like a chimney in college, chasing that tortured artist vibe. Joke's on me. Elias nodded, the empathy in his gaze deepening into something sharper, more personal. He'd seen the type, Maverick's kind, all fire and fragility, the ones who made him want to linger past shift change. Scripts, huh? Read me a line. Make it good. Maverick hesitated, then recited from memory, his voice gaining strength. In the shadow of the peaks, where the wind whispers secrets to the pines, he learned that love isn't a conquest. It's the quiet surrender to the storm. The words hung in the air, raw and electric, pulling at the threads of Elias's carefully woven restraint. By dawn, as the first gray light seeped through the blinds, Elias stood to leave, but not before squeezing Maverick's shoulder, the touch lingering like an afterimage. Get some sleep, storyteller. We'll pick up where we left off. And in that promise, Maverick felt the first crack in his isolation, a warmth that bloomed despite the chill of impending rounds. The days blurred into a rhythm of fluorescent purgatory, mornings of oncologist consults in the dim conference room off the 5th floor, where Dr. Lina Vasquez, a sharp-eyed Filipina with a no-nonsense bob, laid out the battlefield stats like a general plotting maneuvers. Stage 3, aggressive, but we're hitting it with cisplatin and radiation. 50-50 odds if you stick the course. Maverick nodded through the nausea, his mind drifting to the script pages crumpled in his bedside drawer, characters frozen mid-arc because his own plot had veered into uncharted territory. Nights, though, belonged to Elias. He'd slip in after the evening bustle died down, when the ward's fluorescent buzz dimmed to night mode, casting long shadows that danced like extras in a noir film. They'd talk for hours, Maverick spinning tales of Montana summers, where he'd sneak into drive-ins with his brother Jax, projecting bootleg prints on barn walls. Elias countering with stories of LA nights, cruising Olvera Street with his abuela before she passed, the scent of tamales mingling with ocean salt. She called me her little navigator, Elias said one evening, as thunder rumbled over Lake Union. Said I'd find my way even in the fog. Maverick watched him then, the way Elias's hands fidgeted with the hem of his scrub top, calluses from years of precise incisions speaking of a gentleness forged in fire. There was a pull undeniable, like gravity tugging at the edges of a frame. Maverick's pulse quickened not from the meds, but from the brush of Elias's knee against his under the bed rail, accidental yet charged. You ever get scared? Maverick asked, voice barely above the rain's hush. Of letting someone in, I mean, when everything feels like it's slipping anyway. Elias's dark eyes flickered, a storm cloud passing. Every damn day. But fear's just the cost of admission, right? He didn't pull away, and in that shared silence, Maverick dared to imagine a world beyond these walls. A Seattle where they walked hand in hand through Pike Place, foghorns moaning in the distance, no charts or beeps to interrupt. Yet doubt gnawed at the edges. Maverick's ex, Riley from Missoula, a lanky photographer with a laugh like cracking ice, had bailed the week of diagnosis, muttering about not being cut out for this. The rejection stung deeper than any needle, leaving Maverick armored in sarcasm, convinced love was for scripts, not survivors. Elias, too, carried ghosts. A brief fling with a barista named Theo 2 years back ended when Theo's evangelical family discovered them tangled in sheets at a Capitol Hill loft. They called it a phase, Elias confessed one midnight, voice thick. But phases don't leave scars. As the chemo cycles ground on, Maverick's body rebelled, hair shedding like autumn confetti, skin paling to parchment. But Elias's presence was the constant, a lighthouse in the chemo fog. One night, after a particularly brutal round that left Maverick retching into a basin, Elias wiped his brow with a cool cloth, murmuring Spanish endearments Maverick didn't understand but felt in his bones. Quédate conmigo, Elias whispered, stay with me. And Maverick's hand found Elias's, fingers interlacing like puzzle pieces long separated. The kiss came unscripted, 2 weeks into the second cycle, as the city lights twinkled beyond the rain-streaked glass like distant stars. Elias had brought contraband, a thermos of Abuelita's hot chocolate from a hole in the wall on Aurora Avenue, and they shared it in sips, the steam curling between them like unspoken desires. Maverick set the cup aside, his free hand cupping Elias's face, thumb tracing the line of his jaw. I've been waiting for this, Maverick breathed, and Elias leaned in, lips meeting in a collision soft as fog, then fierce as the storm outside. It was everything and not enough. Tongues tentative at first, then hungry, Elias's hands sliding into Maverick's hair, tugging gently as if to ground them both. The monitors beeped approval, oblivious to the shift, the way the room shrank to the heat of their breaths mingling, the faint taste of chocolate and salt. When they broke apart, foreheads pressed, Elias's eyes shone with a vulnerability that mirrored Maverick's own. "This is dangerous," he murmured, but his smile betrayed the lie. In the afterglow of that kiss, Seattle felt less like a cage and more like a canvas. Maverick sketched scenes in his notebook during daylight hours, Elias as the brooding anti-hero, himself the reluctant lead, while Elias stole moments between codes, slipping notes under the pillow. "Your laugh is my favorite plot twist." Their world narrowed to stolen glances in the hallway, where nurses like quiet-spoken Kendra from Spoken raised knowing eyebrows but said nothing, and midnight walks in the hospital's rooftop garden, where the city sprawled below like a glittering promise. But love, Maverick learned, was no tidy three-act structure. It unraveled in the quiet hours, when Elias's phone buzzed with texts from an unknown number, his face tightening like a shutter snapping closed. "Family stuff," he'd say, brushing it off, but Maverick saw the flinch, the way Elias's shoulders hunched against invisible blows. One evening, as they lay tangled on the narrow bed, Elias's shift mercifully slow, Maverick pressed. "Who's winning the war in that head of yours? Tell me so I can fight it too." Elias stilled, his breath warm against Maverick's neck. "It's old news. A guy from nursing school, Marcus. We were intense. He wanted forever. I panicked and ran. Now he's back in town, stirring shit." The confession hung heavy, laced with the scent of rain-soaked evergreens drifting in from the open window. Maverick pulled him closer, but the seed of unease took root, a quiet dissonance in their harmony. The high came crashing on a Thursday, cycle 3 underway, when Maverick's counts tanked and fever spiked like a plot twist gone wrong. Elias was off, called to an emergency in the ER, a multi-car pileup on I-5, leaving Maverick adrift in the haze of antibiotics and isolation. Dr. Vasquez swept in with her team, her voice a clipped directive. "Neutropenia's hit hard. Full lockdown, no visitors." The words landed like a guillotine, severing the lifeline to Elias's voice. He texted from the nurse's station break room, fingers flying. "Miss you already. Fight like hell. I'll be there soon." But hours stretched into a void, Maverick's mind spinning fevered dreams of abandoned sets and empty frames. When Elias finally appeared at shift's end, eyes red-rimmed from the chaos downstairs, he climbed onto the bed despite protocol, wrapping Maverick in his arms. "I thought I'd lost you," Elias whispered, voice breaking, and they clung like survivors, the fever breaking under the weight of their shared warmth. Yet, in the vulnerability, cracks widened. Elias's ex, Marcus, a broad-shouldered firefighter with a Tacoma drawl and a history of second chances, had shown up at the hospital cafeteria that afternoon, cornering Elias by the vending machines. "You ghosted me for this?" Marcus had sneered, glancing at a photo of Elias and his team on the bulletin board, jealousy twisting his words. Elias shoved him away, heart pounding, but the encounter lingered, a poison seeping into their nights. Maverick sensed it in the hesitations, the way Elias's kisses grew frantic, as if chasing away shadows. "What's eating you?" Maverick asked one dawn, as the first fairy horn wailed across the sound. Elias buried his face in Maverick's shoulder, mumbling, "Nothing you need to carry, but lies, even gentle ones, erode foundations," and Maverick's resolve, already frayed by the mirror's cruel reflection of his gaunt frame, began to splinter. The betrayal unfurled on a rain-lashed Saturday, 2 months into their secret symphony, when Maverick, cleared for a supervised outing, wheeled himself to the hospital's ground-floor atrium. The space was a glass-domed oasis amid concrete, ferns and orchids nodding in the humidity, families milling like extras in a crowd scene. He'd planned to surprise Elias with takeout from a Capitol Hill falafel joint, a greasy piece offering after a week of grueling radiation that left his throat raw. But as he rounded the corner by the coffee kiosk, the world tilted. There was Elias, backed against a pillar, Marcus's hand on his arm. Not aggressive, but intimate, the kind of touch that spoke of history unresolved. Elias's face was a mask of conflicted anguish, his body language a betrayal of yielding. "I can't just forget, Mark," Elias was saying, voice low and urgent. "But Maverick. He's dying, and I'm falling for him, and it terrifies me." Marcus leaned in, lips brushing Elias's ear. "Then let me remind you what safe feels like." The kiss that followed was brief, a spark in the dry tinder of old flames, but to Maverick, it was a detonation. He froze, the falafel bag crumpling in his lap, heart hammering against the port in his chest like a trapped bird. Elias pulled back almost immediately, eyes widening in horror as he spotted Maverick across the atrium. But the damage was etched, indelible. Maverick wheeled away before Elias could reach him, the elevator doors closing on his stricken face like a final cut to black. Back in his room, he hurled the bag against the wall, tahini splattering like abstract grief. When Elias burst in minutes later, breathless and pleading, Maverick's voice was ice over fire. "How long have you been playing both sides? Am I just the pity fuck in the cancer ward?" "No, God, no," Elias stammered, dropping to his knees beside the bed, hands reaching but recoiling at Maverick's flinch. Rain lashed the window in sympathy, the city a blurred watercolor of betrayal. "Marcus cornered me. It was nothing, a moment of weakness. You're everything." But words were hollow scripts now, and Maverick turned away, the ache in his chest no longer just the tumor's echo. "Get out," he whispered, and Elias obeyed, the door clicking shut like a lock on their fragile world. The fallout cascaded like dominoes in slow motion. Elias's shifts became minefields, his presence a ghost haunting the edges of Maverick's vision. Charting vitals with averted eyes, murmurs of "I'm sorry," swallowed by the wardsden. Maverick retreated into silence, his notebook filling with jagged sketches of fractured lovers, the chemo's nausea paling against the soul sickness of shattered trust. Dr. Vasquez noticed, pulling him aside during rounds. "You're isolating, Mav. This fight needs your fire, not your walls." Nights stretched endless, the rain a relentless dirge. Maverick replayed the atrium scene in feverish loops, dissecting Elias's expression. The guilt, yes, but also the flicker of genuine pull toward Marcus, a safe harbor in the storm of Maverick's illness. "Am I poison?" he scrawled in a letter he never sent, the pen digging grooves into the paper. His brother Jax called from Billings, voice crackling over the line. "Hang in there. Bro loves a battlefield, but you're the goddamn general." But even Jax's Montana grit couldn't pierce the fog. Elias, adrift in his own maelstrom, paced his cramped apartment in Fremont, the troll sculpture under the bridge mocking his folly with its concrete grin. Marcus's texts piled up. "We were good once. Come back." But Elias deleted them, each one a reminder of the cowardice that had driven him to that kiss. He'd fallen hard for Maverick, the way his hazel eyes lit with storyteller's spark, the resilience that turned scars into badges. Yet fear, that old specter of loss, amplified by watching patience slip away, had clawed him back to familiarity. "I'm an idiot," he confessed to Kendra over shift beers at the Alibi Room, the hoppy IPA bitter on his tongue. "I almost threw away something real for a ghost." Kendra, with her noble shit-spoken straightforwardness, fixed him with a stare. "Then fix it, before the credits roll." Her words ignited a spark, and Elias spent the next shift drafting apologies in his head. But Maverick's cold shoulder was a fortress, built of hurt too raw to breach. The crisis peaked on the eve of discharge, Maverick scans showing remission's fragile dawn, the tumor shrinking like a defeated villain. But the victory tasted ash, his body a hollow shell, spirit guttered low. That night, as thunder rolled in from the Olympics, Maverick slipped from his room, for pole in tow, navigating the dim corridors to the rooftop garden. The air was electric, charged with petrichor and possibility, the city lights fracturing through raindrops like scattered diamonds. He didn't hear Elias approach until the door creaked, footsteps hesitant on the wet gravel. "Mav, please." Elias's voice was wrecked, rain plastering his hair, scrubs clinging like second skin. He stopped a few feet away, hands open in surrender. "I don't deserve this, but I need to say it. That kiss was panic, not want. Marcus is the past I ran from because it never fit. You're the story I want to live." Maverick turned, lightning illuminating the hollows of his cheeks, eyes stormy as the sound below. Words are cheap, Elias. You made me believe in us, then yanked the rug. How do I trust that won't happen again when I'm out there, vulnerable as hell? Elias stepped closer, rain mingling with tears on his face. You don't. Not yet. But let me show you. I'll quit chasing safe. I'll scream this love from the goddamn fairies if you want. He closed the gap, dropping to one knee. Not in proposal but penance, the gesture raw, unscripted. I love you, Maverick Hale. Out loud, no fears attached. Teach me how to be worthy. The thunder cracked and something in Maverick fractured too. Not broke, but opened. He extended a hand, pulling Elias up, their embrace a collision of sobs and shudders under the deluge. Lips met in the downpour, tasting of salt and renewal, the kiss a vow sealed in storm. Below, Seattle pulsed on, indifferent yet alive, a canvas for their rewritten arc. In the weeks that followed, healing unfolded like a slow bloom. Maverick checked out of Seattle General into a sublet in Queen, and the view of the Space Needle a daily reminder of perspectives shifted. Chemo's shadow lingered, fatigue that pinned him to the couch, appetite a fickle guest. But Elias was there, trading scrubs for jeans and hoodies, cooking pozole from his abuela's recipe, the kitchen filling with cumin and laughter. They walked the locks at Ballard, watching salmon leap upstream, symbols of persistence Maverick clung to. Elias faced his demons head-on. Therapy sessions in a Belltown office, where a soft-spoken counselor named Dr. Ruiz unpacked the layers of abandonment from his youth. Marcus faded into blocked numbers, a footnote. And Maverick? He dusted off his script, rewriting the lost boys' tale with threads of their story woven in. Love not as conquest, but quiet revolution. One crisp October evening, as golden light slanted over Gasworks Park, they sat on a blanket amid rustling grasses, Maverick's head on Elias's lap. Think we'll make it? Maverick murmured, fingers tracing Elias's knuckles. Elias bent to kiss his forehead, voice steady as the Olympics on the horizon. We're already there. Every night, every dawn. In the end, love wasn't the absence of fear, but the courage to name it, to let it echo out loud against the rain-swept streets of a city that never slept. Maverick's film premiered a year later at SIFF. A quiet triumph, Elias in the front row, their hands clasped like an unbreakable reel. And in the applause's roar, they found their humanity. Not in perfection, but in the messy, profound grace of choosing each other, again and again.